And good morning, YouTube. So I ran into a bit of a problem with these boost converters that I picked up for this video soft light. Actually got two of them. This one is completely dead now, but the problem I was having was when I would turn this on, the output voltage would jump up to the 34 or 35 volts I had set, and then it would just drop down to the 20 volt input voltage. And you could sometimes play with it a bit by turning it off and on. And I think what the problem was, there was too much inrush current, because I guess that's a problem on these boost converters, because you have both the input and output capacitors are discharged, and when you first turn on the power, you've got to charge up both the input and especially the output capacitor. That causes high currents in here. So what I noticed was if you let it go like that, you could sometimes turn it off and on and get it to go back up to the 35 volts and hold. But then this one, at some point, it stopped doing even that. It won't go above the input voltage. I can crank the bench supply up here and it goes up and down, but it's not boosting anything on the output voltage. And this other unit here doesn't do anything anymore. Yeah, and it was worse when I had the output connected. If I had the string of LEDs connected, I typically had to unplug the LEDs, turn the supply on and off a few times to get it to go up to 35 volts, and then I could plug in my LED panel light. So that wasn't very user-friendly. So I had high hopes for these. Having the voltmeter was kind of a neat feature, but it seems like these just don't handle the inrush very well. But let me switch over, and I want to run this with my larger boost converter, and we can actually check and see if we're getting the rated output on these, or see what kind of current and voltage. And so let's take a look at that. Okay, so I've switched to my larger boost converter here, and let's turn on the power. So this one, you can set the voltage and current limit. So I have it set for, I think, 35 volts and 600 milliamps. And if we turn the power on, this one works just fine. So we're pulling off my bench supply. I've got 20 volts on the input here, and it's pulling right at 1 amp. So you've got 20 watts. So that seems to work okay. It's actually pulling 510 milliamps at the 35, what do I have, 35.2 volts. So yeah, that's actually putting out what I expected. Well, I had double that. I had 70.4 volts, but that was before I split the two LEDs strings and put them in parallel. 35.2 doubled is 70.4. So that was essentially the power I was getting out of the LEDs off of the AC supply. Okay, yeah, so my backup plan is I would just want to use one of these small 3 amp boost converters. I think that's what this one is, just one I had sitting around. So I need to get the wires hooked up, and then I'll set the voltage. Yeah, so here we go. I've got my boost converter set up. I've put a clamp meter here, and I have it set for inrush current. And if we turn that on, I get about 1.28 up to about 1.3 amps of inrush current. So I think these smaller converters, they've got smaller capacitors and smaller inductors, so they're really not going to take as much current. And I think the problem I was having was with this larger capacity boost converter, this LiPo pack here could provide so much current so quickly that it was just blowing out the boost converter. So I think a smaller converter here might actually work better. And so that's the inrush current. And let me actually turn this off. I'll try, let me zero that. we'll turn that back on, about 0.93 amps, 0.94, and I'm putting out a little over 500 milliamps into the panel light. One thing I noticed with this larger converter when I was running this one would take over 1 amp running off my bench supply. So this smaller converter uses a little bit less current because you don't have to drive the display here, and there's a microcontroller and more lots is there. So I will plug in a LiPo battery monitor into this connector here to monitor the input voltage. I'll probably put all of the circuitry off to one side and then leave the other side for the batteries. That is working, so I haven't had any problem with that little converter, and I don't think it's just barely warm. I mean, it just feels just warm to the touch. So in the next video, we'll look at how I plan to hold this light panel. I went through a few iterations on a mounting bracket, and I'll show you that in the next video. If you have any questions or comments, post that up in the comment section below the video description, and I'll put a link to the next video in the upper right corner. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel for updates. And as always, thanks for watching.